Hey, I was thinking of doing this in the car, but I thought it's safer to wait till I get home. But I was thinking in the car about the environmental issue, and I work for a public utility here in California in the Bay Area, and we had a board, a public board, and we always had an environmentalist on the board, and generally, or more often than not, they were from Berkeley, or they were just liberals, and the union sort of looked to them for help. And but I remember I was perceived as hostile to the environmental movement, but yet I never really was. I was a hostile to people that put spikes in redwood trees because workers get killed and get injured that way. But and it doesn't solve this problem. You've got to get workers on the side because the environment is important to workers as well. And most of my friends that hunt are quite strong environmentalists, believe it or not. But the thing is, so I wasn't really hostile, and then I realized what it was. I was hostile to the movement that led it. And the movement of around the environment was led by the petty bourgeois, left petty bourgeois liberals, middle class types. And they do not see the working class people, as being a part of the program or a part the main solution to the problem. So I remember speaking at the board. And we had a big environmentalist on there. I remember I went to a house one time that was when I first got active. She had a big picture of a black woman picking cotton or something. A big tear coming down here, I mean, not a fist in the air, not a powerful. This was I feel sorry you picture, And that's what they're like, to be quite honest with you. And I remember, for example, when we had the strike in '85, we couldn't get her to come on the picket line because there's some rule about being on the board. And well, if there's a rule that blocks you from helping workers, then you shouldn't be on that board, or you should be force them to remove you from that board for defending workers, right? I mean, and that's what look at what Biden and the whole U.S. Congress did when they took the right to strike away for railroad workers a couple of years ago. These people won't fight for us when it comes to the nitty gritty. And so what I rejected was this liberal leadership that at the time the woman I was mentioning, at the time that she wouldn't come on the picket lines. There was, I think, the Humphrey the whale was stranded in the bay. You Google Humphrey the whale. She was out there for that, the Humphrey the whale, but couldn't come on our picket lines, So that's the sort of thing, and I resented that. And it was the same in the Central Labour Body. When I became active in the Central Labour Council, and some of the leadership of some of the other locals that were sort of Labour Notes type, some of them liberals, they were involved in CISPES and the struggle for the Central American people, El Salvador and so forth, as they would bring in resolutions for peace in El Salvador and human rights, and the union bureaucracy would pass that. That's no problem. We'll pass that. Don't ask us to do anything. Don't you dare say that we should do something. Who's against peace in El Salvador? It's that's where that world peace comes from. It's just emptiness. Empty, because sure, they'll pass a resolution so they could go back to their little left group and say, look what I did at the Central Labour Council, got Labour's stamp on it, And so I was involved in that movement. I went to rallies and did this, but I wasn't drawn to it because it was same people. It was dominated by the petty bourgeois. And I made the argument one time in the Central Labour Council, what will stop the horror that the United States was committed, supporting fascism, right-wing thugs in the Central America, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and so on, Guatemala, all that whole region. What would stop that is the American working class, the U.S. working class. And you can't get the U.S. working class to take a position, to get involved, when you can't, or you're refusing, or your platform or your energy is not directed at our wages and conditions, that you're not fighting against the union officialdom's concessionary policies and weak opposition to the employer's offensive. If you can't do that, the American worker's not going to. I'm sorry, I'm a bit too busy trying to pay the rent and the childcare. You win something for them, you show that you can fight for them, and you've got a strategy and a program and a strategy for winning, then that's a different ballgame. And it's the same with the environment. I remember speaking at the board. You're not going to, it was really for her ears, I remember, the environmentalists. You're not going to get a single mother with a couple of kids to get involved or worry yourself about a fruit bat in Brazil when you can't pay the rent. It's just common sense, this stuff. It's common sense. But the Liberals can't go there. First, they're all Democrats, most of them. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat, but the Democratic Party and the Liberals really cannot wage an offensive against capital because they fundamentally support capitalism, and they simply want to make it nice, and it's not nice, and it never will be, and it's going to be worse. So that was why I wasn't against the environmental movement. I mean, you've got to link the environmental movement. We're an environmental. We're the environment. Our wages are the environment. But you won't get workers to worry about issues that when they can't feed themselves, when we can't pay the rent. And it's just, it's not hostile to the ideas necessarily. I was going on longer here, but I remember going down to Rancho Seco with some youth, and there was a protest there, the nuclear plant, and hard hats came out, and so some of them, one of the young women was arguing with him about and she said to me, "See, American workers don't care about this, that, and the other." I said, "Well, you want to shut down his workplace? He's probably got a house note and kids in college. You want to shut down his workplace? What if he comes up to university? Shut that down." So you've got to have that class approach, otherwise it's never going to work. So I wasn't hostile to either of those things. I was hostile to the leadership, collective leadership, and the class nature of the leadership of those movements.